Everyone, welcome to Bao Phi. We're here to meet him today. Why? Because he is the author of one of the books we are featuring this month called A Different Pond. It is a book that will be featured today during his chat. But first, I'd like to talk a little bit about him. Here's a poster I found online. Bao Phi was born in Vietnam and raised in the Phillips neighborhood of South Minneapolis. He is a Vietnamese American Minnesotan and a longtime spoken word artist. A poet, he has two collections published. They are called Song I Sing and Thousand Star Hotel. As a children's book author, he has written 4 children's books: A Different Pond, My Footprints, Hello, Mandarin Duck, and the upcoming You Are Life. His children's books have accumulated numerous accolades, including a Caldecott Honor, an Ezra Jack Keats Award, a Charlotte Zolotow Medal for Outstanding Writing, and places on numerous best book lists. He is a community member, a refugee, and a father. Here's the cover of one of his books of poetry. Bao, can you read us your poem called Say What? Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I guess I'm going to read a quick poem from Thousand Star Hotel. I really appreciate you all being here. We're going to read this very short poem, and then I think we're going to get on with reading A Different Pond and having a conversation. So this is called Say What, and just a really brief explanation. Um, the Vietnamese language, Vietnam, where I was born, I'm a Vietnamese person. Vietnamese is tonal. And so, if those of you who don't know what that means that um, one word spelled one way in Vietnamese can mean many different things depending on how you say it. It's almost like singing. So, if you sing a word in a certain note, it means a certain thing. Um, and this poem is about it's each line in this poem starts with the same word ma, but each of the tones is different, if that makes sense. So here we go. Because the word ma means 6 different things depending on how you say it. So this is called Say What. Ma, ghost, even with no tone to fetter it lives. Ma, but say this like you're laying it down. Ma, tomb or grave, curl it like a question mark. Ma, start from the bottom, then go up, like ghetto dreams. Ma, mama, the one I didn't have to look up. Ma, to plate, heavy, a stone too large for your hands, dropped in water. Vietnamese people have always been spoken word poets. How you say it is as important to the life of the word as the word itself. So should I just move into the children's book
All
or
right. Here's a picture of the cover of his next book called You Are Life. I'm just going to talk about it a little bit and then we'll turn everything over to him. You are, you are, you are. Every child is full to bursting with amazing things. This book will celebrate the wonderful and complex identity of children of immigrants and refugees, embracing all that they are: a dancer, a shining light, a K pop song, and promising that they will never be invisible. Award winning picture book author and poet Bao Phi and illustrator Hannah Lee remind young readers through lyrical text and fantastic illustrations that who they are and what they love will always be enough. And this book is coming out in 7 to 8 months. You can get it on Amazon for your e reader first if you'd like. And now let's turn it over to Bao. Thanks for coming, Bao.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you for everybody for showing up. The internet is a place that is full of content, and it's wonderful that you're choosing to spend some time and energy with us this evening. Thank you so much. And these events usually take the work of so many people behind the scenes organizing, and so everybody who was responsible for doing something, for bringing us together today. Thank you so much. So the way that this is going to go is I'm going to read from A Different Pond, which is my first children's book, and I'll share my screen so that those of you at home can follow along with the pictures and the text. And then after that, I think we're going to have a discussion. And basically, I believe you can type your questions, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, and we will see those questions. So if you have questions as they pop up, feel free to type them, and we'll get into those questions a little bit after I read from A Different Pond. So here we go. I'm going to try to share my screen here. Um, Give me just a second. Um, do, do, do. Hmm, Interesting. So, oh, here we go. Here we go. So this is A Different Pond. It is a story written by me and illustrated by Thi Bui, who's a wonderful Vietnamese American illustrator and author herself from the Bay Area in California. She also has her own book out called The Best We Could Do. I highly recommend reading that if you haven't already. A Different Pond. Words by me, pictures by T. Dad wakes me quietly so Mom can keep sleeping. It will be hours before the sun comes up. In the kitchen, the bare bulb is burning. Dad has been up for a while, making sandwiches and packing the car. Can I help? I ask. Sure, my dad whispers, and hands me the tackle box. The streetlights look brighter, and the roads aren't so busy before the sun comes up. Dad turns on the heater and tells me stories. A kid at my school said, my dad's English sounds like a thick, dirty river. But to me, his English sounds like gentle rain. We stop at the bait store on Lake Street. It always seems to be open. You're here early today, the bait man says. I got a second job, my dad explains. I have to work this morning. On a Saturday? The bait man asks. My dad nods. I feel the bag of minnows move. They swim like silver arrows in my hands. It's still dark when we get to the pond. We park the car and climb over the divider between the road and the trees. My dad holds my hand and walks ahead through the tangle and scrub. Step where I step, he says. I'm thinking about what the dad told the bait man. If you got another job, why do we still have to fish for food? I ask. Everything in America costs a lot of money, he explains. I feel calluses on his hand when he squeezes mine. Sometimes a Hmong man is at the pond. He speaks English like my dad and likes to tell funny jokes. Sometimes there is a black man there too. He shows me his colorful lure collection. This time, it is just me and my dad. It is a little bit cold. I rub my hands together, yawn, and look up to see faint stars like freckles. As Dad sets up in a clearing, I gather small, thin twigs for a fire. They need to be dry and clean. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 10 more for later. I put some rocks in a circle and set up the twigs. Like a volcano, Dad reminds me. I set one end of each twig down, the other up, letting them in so they rest against each other and hold each other up. I get it to light with just one match. Dad nods. You want to put a minnow on the hook? Dad asks. I want to help, but I shake my head no. I don't want to hurt that little fish, even if I know it's about to be eaten by a bigger one. My dad smiles. He isn't upset with me. Dad hands me a sandwich, cold bologna between two pieces of bread. Careful of the spicy stuff, he says. There's half a peppercorn, like a moon split in two, studded into the meat. I used to fish by a pond like this one when I was a boy in Vietnam, Dad says, biting into his sandwich. With your brother? I ask. He nods, then looks away. Dad tells me about the war, but only sometimes. He and his brother fought side by side. One day, his brother didn't come home. The bobber dips in the dark and Dad pulls. Got one, he says, almost shouting. A crappie, and soon another. Can I help? I ask. He nods, and I use two hands to help guide the fish into the bucket. The fish feels slimy and rough at the same time. Dad laughs at the funny face I make. Dad smiles, his teeth broken and white in the dark, because we have a few fish and he knows we will eat tonight. Time to go home. Dad must get ready for work. He washes his hands with a small nub of green and white soap. Then I do the same. I look at the trees as we walk back to the car. I wonder what the trees look like at that other pond, in the country my dad comes from. By the time we get home, the sunlight coming through the windows is just a faint tint, blue and gray instead of gold. At home, Mom looks tired, but she smiles at the fish in the big white bucket. My dad changes his clothes and he gets ready to go to work. He pats me on the back and says to Mom, our boy did a good job with the fire today. You learn so quickly, Mom says. Then she asks me to help with the fish before she has to go to work, too. I'm sad that she and Dad must leave, but not too sad. I know that later on they will both come home. Look after your baby brother, Mom reminds my brothers and sisters. She means me. Then she gets on her bike and goes to work. I'm not a baby, I think to myself. I helped catch dinner. Tonight, when we are all home, Dad will put rice in the cooker and Mom will fry the fish on both sides until they are crispy. I will bring out the jar of fish sauce that has flecks of chili pepper and carrots floating on top. At the table, my brothers and sisters will tell funny stories. Mom will ask about their homework. Dad will nod and smile and eat with his eyes half closed. Good fish, he will say to me. And I will smile and nod. And later, when we sleep, we will dream of fish in faraway ponds. All right. Thank you all so much for listening. I really appreciate it.
Okay, I have a list of questions for you that come from comments the kids have made to me when I read the book to them. Mostly they wanted to know how old you were in the story. I thought you were maybe 6 or 7.
That's a good question. Well, I honestly I can't remember that far back how old I was, but I want to say somewhere between probably 7 years old to 12. I think somewhere in that age range. Yeah,
Okay, our next question is, did you eat fish for dinner every night?
such a great question. We didn't, even though the fish was delicious. You know, really, both my parents also in real life had jobs, more than one job actually, growing up, and so we would have some money to buy food. And the whole point of a different pond was that we went fishing also for additional food to help, save a little money. So we didn't eat fish every single night, but it was delicious. Yeah, that's a great question.
Now, the next question was a really important one. The kids all wanted to know, do you still eat a lot of fish now?
you
And I
know,
think that's partly because Vietnamese people know how to cook fish so it really tastes good, and maybe we Americans don't.
oh, I mean, I love fish. I love fish and I love eating. So yeah, I still eat a lot of fish, but I don't go fishing much anymore. But yes, I do still love fish. It's delicious.
Oh,
Um,
and the kids also wanted to know, did you ever need to trespass yourself to get food?
that is a great question. Um, I think yes, pretty much. I'm pretty sure. I was very young, so I can't tell you 100% if that's true, but I think so. I'm pretty sure that I had to. We were very poor. We had come from a war. We had come from a war-torn country to this country, and we weren't. The difference between a refugee and an immigrant is that refugees usually don't have a plan. We aren't planning to leave our homeland, and so usually what happens, like my family, is we didn't know we had to leave Vietnam, and we had to leave in a rush, and so we were very poor, we were very hungry. My parents worked so hard, and I think that at their jobs, and I think sometimes I can't remember. Sometimes I think maybe they just didn't understand the law, or maybe they thought, oh, like one or two fish will be okay. So I'm pretty sure yes, but it was such a long time ago that I'm not quite sure. But I'm pretty sure yes is a pretty safe answer.
A lot of our kids will understand because they're hungry themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And part of
Well,
it
do
is.
you have anything else you want to say? It's only been 16 minutes that you've been on. How about it?
Well, yeah, I mean, like obviously there's a lot more I can say, but I really want to. If you all have questions, please feel free to type them because I really want to hear from you, and I really want to hear from those of you who are so kind enough to come to this reading. Well, I'd like to hear you and have answer any questions that you might have. But I'll talk a little bit. So my background is I touched on it a little bit. I came as a baby to this country, from a war in a country that a lot of people don't understand. The American war in Vietnam. Um, there's not a lot of education about that war, and so there was a lot of misunderstanding when my family and other people like me came to this country. A lot of people thought that the war over there was our fault somehow, and so they don't understand the history of, for instance, people like my father who fought on the same side as the United States and the soldiers from the U.S. They did not understand that the Vietnam War is a part of United States history. It's a part of Russian history. It's a part of Chinese history. It's a part of world history, because it's like this country, this beautiful country on the coast. It was like these superpowers in the world wanted to influence that little part of the world, and so there was a lot of fighting. It's a part of history, and not a lot of people, a lot of not a lot of people know that. And so I came from that war with my family as a baby to Minnesota, to Minneapolis's largest, poorest, and most racially diverse neighborhood, where my parents still live. They still live in the same house I was raised in. And, I have written poetry for a very, very long time. I've been a spoken word artist going and doing talks like this all over the country for a long time. But I didn't write children's books until I had a child of my own. And it was really important to me um, to to have books my that that told the story and the struggle of people like my parents, my child's grandparents. I feel like Asian American history and struggle is so invisible in this country, and that I wanted to, have a book that kind of taught some of that struggle and some of that history, not just to my child, but to any child who wants to learn that history. Because I believe that we all need to learn about one another, right? So I feel like it's my responsibility to learn about Black people, Native American people, Pacific Islanders, Latinx people, Middle Eastern and Arab people, white people, queer people, people with disabilities, and the list goes on and on. I think we all need to learn about one another. And it is my hope that people will also learn about us, my people. And, like I have to learn about my people too. I have to, even though I'm Asian, I have to learn about Asian people too, because we're not educated about Asian American history. And even if you're Asian, if you're not taught that, you don't know it. Right. And so that's a little bit about me. And I think that that actually is a good segue into the Q&A because I see that there's someone over here who's saying some very nice things and actually has a question. Um, she says, or they, I'm sorry, say, as a Mexican immigrant who emigrated at 3 years old, I'd love to read these books to my diverse second grade students. Yes, thank you so much. It's really wonderful to hear that. I see you have another question that says, um, you you would love to write a book. It's your dream. Where can I get started? Write it. Just write the book. Don't worry about the art. Um, don't worry about the art. If you go through a traditional publisher, the publisher's job will be, if they decide to make your story into a book, it is the publisher's job to find an illustrator and pay the illustrator and work with that illustrator. Um, and so you don't have to worry about that. What you should worry about is writing the best picture book or story that you can think of, and working on it until you're proud of it. And then basically look for either an agent to represent you to sell your book to a publishing house, or you can also look at organizations like Lee and Low. Lee and Low have a contest, I believe. Like they're a publisher that works very hard in the We Need Diverse Books movement, and I believe they have a contest for manuscripts to publish books, or grants even for you to apply to write those books. So there are opportunities out there, but I would suggest like writing the story, making the story as best you can, and then when you have something you're proud of, you think you're ready to put out into the world. That's when you either find an agent or you start pursuing publishing. I would love to read something by you. We need as many different stories from different people as possible. The more, the merrier, is my opinion. Are there other questions out there, out in the world? Um, any other viewers have any questions? Maybe? No? Oh no, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Um, Catherine, did you have any more questions, or should I just kind of like freestyle it?
All right, I have one more book to show if you'd like to talk about it.
Sure.
It's called Hello, Mandarin Duck. Do you want to tell everyone about it?
Thank you so
That would be
much.
great.
Yes, yeah, thank you so much. So, Hello, Mandarin Duck is my third children's book. And I knew that if I wrote a children's book, I wanted to address an important issue, deportation, which, is a harmful practice that can hurt so many families. Um, but I was trying to figure out how to tell that story. And so I thought of a time when I was walking around the park next to my house, and I saw this duck. And this duck was away from the pond where all the other ducks were living. And this duck was living by a broken water fountain. Now, the broken water fountain had created a puddle in the ground in this park. And this duck was just sitting, like, basically had made this small puddle its home. And I remember that duck stayed there for a while, and I thought to myself, I wonder if people are being nice to this duck because it seems so out of place. Or are people being mean to it? Are people throwing rocks at it? Are people going to call like wildlife and try to get it taken away? Like, what are they going to do? That happened many years ago. Um, and when I thought of Hello Mandarin Duck, I thought to myself, what if it was about a duck that seems out of place, but all these kids in the neighborhood welcome this duck in the languages that they speak, right? And so, in a way, the book is also a tribute to my neighborhood. The neighborhood that I live in now is very diverse, and so I want to, the kids say hello or welcome to the duck in Somali, in Anishinaabe, in Dakota, Lakota, in Spanish, um, in Vietnamese, Cambodian, Korean, Hebrew, Russian. Um, and so basically it's partly a book about hopefully a community welcoming a person, a stranger or a new person into the community using languages from their culture. And it's also encouraging kids to learn just like a little bit of different languages that they might not be familiar with. And I'll tell you a funny story. When I came up with the concept, I was like, well, I don't know if I should write this book. I'm not quite really, I'm not really sure if I should write it. And I was thinking about it. But then I was asked to come talk to an entire school in Minnesota, where that school was about 95% of the kids were basically English second language. So the primary language they spoke at home, 95% of the kids, it was not English, right? So English was their second language. And so I'm reading my children's books to them, and we're talking. And during the Q&A, much like this one of the kids asked, "Well, what's your newest book? What's your new book going to be about?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I was thinking about this book with a duck and all these kids welcoming the duck in all these different languages." And the kids got so excited. So all of these kids, who speak, at home they speak Swahili and Russian or Karen or Hmong, all or Chinese. They speak all these different languages, and they're like, that would be so great if there was like a children's book where there was like one word or two in my language, that where I could have other people like learn a little bit of my language. And so that's really what gave me a lot of confidence to say, okay, it seems like this might be a good idea. So so that's the origin of that book. Yeah, thank you. I thought that was cute too. Yeah, I mean those kids when you read to them, they're just so cute. One of my favorite stories is a kid once came up to me and oh yeah, and Catherine is showing you the different words there. Well, one of this, I'll tell you a cute story, and then we'll go to the next question. Is that I did a reading once, and a kid came up to me after the reading, and he said to me, "Hey, we have a lot in common. We're both Asian. We're both wearing pants right now, and we both have family that were born during the war." And I was like, "Wow, that's both like really weird and like really touching." And so anyway, I digress. That was just a cute story about Hello Mandarin Duck. And Catherine was kind enough to show that there's a vocabulary in the back with a pronunciation guide on how to say welcome or hello in all those different languages. Are there any more questions, either from Catherine or the audience?
All right, everyone. Please know that you can get this book at my library, and Bao Phi, you will be seeing Chow here if you ever come to California. You're welcome to come.
Well, thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much.
Oh no, thank you so much. And I love California. I have family in Los Angeles, and really good friends in the Bay, and it's really wonderful. Thank you so much for being with me here today. Yeah, thank you. Are there any more questions out there? Oh yes, thank you, California Humanities and National Endowment for the Humanities. Again, it takes a village to put on an event like this. So thank you all so much. And oh yes, Cynthia, thank you. It's really wonderful to be a part of this program. I love libraries. Oh, maybe this is a good place to end. Um, really quickly, I love libraries because when I was a kid, as you can imagine, I was a very bookish, nerdy kid who was a refugee from Vietnam, kind of in a tough neighborhood. And so there was a library in my neighborhood about 8 blocks away that I would walk back and forth from because books were free. And at the library, books are free, and comic books are free, and you can borrow books, have a library card, borrow books, and books were amazing. This was like we couldn't afford video games and we couldn't afford cable back then, and this was like long before the internet and YouTube and all of that stuff. I know it sounds crazy, but really books were so amazing, and libraries were like a, a safe haven for me. The library was like a place where I could go and read about different cultures and fantastic stories. And so I always am glad to do things with libraries and librarians. Thank you so much, libraries and librarians, for all you do. And thank you all for being here with me tonight. us tonight. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Yes, I'll say one more thing. It is because of you that I opted to include children's books and children's programs in this Anaheim Reads, which goes for a month. And I just want to say thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And keep writing.
Thank you so
Many
much.
thanks.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody.